right. We're going to get going. Just a second here. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you really want to know, huh? Fine. I'm gonna start by telling you this. And this is important, so listen up. Your entire life, this one and many others, you've been a god who uses its absolute power to make yourself powerless. Entire cultures, especially this one, have all been afraid of their weaknesses, supposedly, when in reality, they've all been afraid of their power. This goes beyond the matrix of reality. This is something much deeper than that. This is eternal. This is fully realizing your consciousness. This is infinite. This is evolution. This is our divine right.
All right. Welcome to Bootsy Greencast, the podcast that is named after the fictitious host of the podcast, getting it going here. And I'm really excited. Got an awesome show for you all today. Really looking forward to getting into this. And just before we do, just want to go ahead and let you all know that I've got a couple things coming up. I'm going to be at the Midwest Peace and Liberty Festival, speaking up there in Michigan. Super excited about that. That is August 14th. And I'm looking forward to just talking with a bunch of people, meeting a bunch of people. Oh, that's the wrong screen. And then also just want to give a shout out to my friends over at Content Safe. They are amazing. They are making sure this is going to get distributed all over the internet, here, there, and yon, which is amazing. Today, I'm very fortunate to have someone that I've been speaking to, really excited to get on the show. Ahrar Ahmad, he goes by the Muslim Mystic on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. I need to update these links, and I'll do so in the description below. Ahrar, thank you so much for taking the time to chat today. I really appreciate it.
I got to thank you for, for putting this together, and it's funny. It's interesting because you said you have a thing in Michigan going on. Where in Michigan is it?
Yeah, it's near, I don't know exactly where it is, but it's not too far from Flint. They told me if I was going to fly into Flint, Michigan, which I've never been to Michigan.
Or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So not far.
You know that?
Are you really? You're from there?
I grew up in Michigan. Yeah. I grew up in Michigan. And it's interesting how you're saying, it's like synchronicity. See what I'm talking about? This is all synchronicity.
It is.
And the more I look at my life, especially after I actually actively pursued this kind of information that is not very popular, and that people around me think I'm crazy, and my family, my wife almost left me, and it's like, you know what I mean? It's like, this is not a joke, and the more I did it, despite those fears that my ego would have, the more I pushed through, the more I could see like insights and synchronicities, and this is when he said Michigan, I'm like, what the heck? Because I heard that before. I heard of that festival before, and
yeah. They've been doing it for a while. It was kind of random that, I spoke to the guy's name's Joe, really nice guy. And, a friend of mine had said that, I was good behind a microphone. I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm excited to get up there and just connect with people. I was able to go to Pork Fest, which is short for porcupine. It sounds like a barbecue festival, but it's really like a libertarian type of thing.
Uh-huh.
And I was able to go to that and check that out. And that was really cool and interesting and different. My friend who goes to a lot of burns said it was a lot like a burn, like a Burning Man type of thing. But it was very like mellow and laid back, and you kind of just did whatever, and connected with people. And that was a great part about it. Like kind of what we're doing it digitally, but we got to do that, physically. But I'm really excited actually to talk about what's been going on with you, because it is very interesting. And, I don't want to get too controversial, obviously, or anything like that. All due respect to people and their beliefs and views about the world. But I am really interested in how a lot of these traditions overlap, and that we can learn a lot from, each other. I guess transurfing is what I'm sort of known for talking about the most. And that's kind of a modern take, I would say, more scientific ish as far as spiritual stuff goes. But I was raised in the church, in the Christian church, as a very intense like Pentecostal, and even before that, like a Baptist. So, I've seen a lot of weird stuff, like a lot of supernatural stuff, even within, the dogmas, even within the things that, we were, even how we were brought up. So I'm really interested to learn a bit more, the Goetic path work, how that sort of, I feel like a lot of these traditions have a lot of similar rituals and rites and things like that. But I want to break into that and talk about how you've discovered your particular path and how this whole thing has started to open up for you.
Yeah, it's a long story, but I'll keep it as short as I can, without taking some key parts out. But I grew up in Michigan. I was born in India, actually. And when I came, well, I didn't come, my parents came when I was 4 years old. And I remember Detroit, Romulus Airport, that's Michigan, Romulus Airport. And I remember, Pan Am flight. I remember the winter smell. And then I just have bits and memories, like first day in kindergarten and crying for my mom and all this kind of stuff. And then fast forward, I was in a very diverse community in Ann Arbor. And then when I was about to go to 5th grade, we moved to a really rural farm town outside of Ann Arbor. And that's when I kind of shrunk, where I went inside my shell, and I didn't come out until, after high school. After high school, I became a police officer in Detroit, for almost 6.5 years. And that's when my kind of initiation started, Emira, can you come? Be quiet, okay? My daughter. Okay, so yeah, that's when I see things in that the average person doesn't see. This is 1999, 1998. So it was before the cell phones and all that kind of stuff with the cameras and no social media, and it was a different reality back then. Literally a different reality, and I got introduced in some brotherhoods that I was a part of, and I'm still a part of. It's just that when I resigned, I had this yearning to come to California, and I went on a vacation. I went on furlough to California. My sister was getting married, and I believe it was the 14th of September, 2001. So in 2011, September 11th happened, and they shut all the flights. So the February before she got engaged, I drove there, and I had an amazing time. I loved the whole sun and the ocean. I never been to California. And then when I went back to the department, I was just dreaming about going to California for 2 years. All I would do is I was talking about it and wishing about it. And then one day I just literally, December 17th, 2004, I went to my lieutenant and I just resigned. I said, I'm going to resign. He's like, are you sure? This and that. And then I said, yeah. And then I just, I turned my gun in and everything. And I literally drove to California, like Pasadena. And, it was hindsight. I was running away from myself. I thought I can start this new life somewhere else. But the thing was, I was the same person. I was the same version of myself. Now with a little bit more money, because I cashed out my 401k and my retirement. and I had this lump sum of cash, and it didn't last very, very long. Very long in LA, partying with people, and you know how like all of a sudden everybody wants to be your friend when you pick up the tab. You know what I mean? And then and that lasted maybe like 9 months, and I'm like, I don't have that much money left, and I moved to the suburbs, and it just I fell apart after that. It's like, what am I doing? And I got depressed, and this is like around like 2006, and then in 2008, in my culture, I'm Indian, but I'm Muslim. Like I'm like Sunni Muslim, which is the majority of the sect. There's all these sects in Islam, and the largest sect is Sunni, and the second largest sect is Shia. And then they have all these other smaller sects like Ahmadiyyas and all these things. But it's interesting because the dogmatic people of each sect, especially Sunni people more so, they say that all these other sects are wrong and this and that, and they get into debates. And I was just like, I didn't want to do any part of that, even though when I moved to California, I was very much involved in learning more about Islam, and I went to these lectures and then double weekend seminars, and I was doing a lot. I was doing more than the average Muslim. They say that the people that you see in the mosque, it only represents 10% of the population of the Muslims in the area, because not everybody goes to the mosque, only 10%. So it's like, and I was going to the mosque, and I was doing these other things, like going to these lectures with like Yasser Qadi, which is like a big scholar, American scholar. And the thing was, I kept on asking questions, like really to other people, there was weird questions.
Blasphemous, maybe?
Because I understood Masonry, and I understood the basic concepts of like light bearer, but I didn't really dive deep into it until 2012. My mom died in 2011, and I was next to her in November. And you know how the Mayan calendar starts at like 2012, and but it's not like 2012 and that's it. It's like a buffer zone, and for me, it's like you have to internalize this whole reality. Every scripture that comes or that came, it's actually happening for you, and I understood that, and I was like, you know what, I can't live anybody else's reality. This is my reality, and everything for me is like, it's a giant For You page, and then the more I started to understand how it is my page, how I'm seeing it, like what am I seeing, the deeper I went in that rabbit hole, the more I changed as a person. And people around me were like, that's too much of a change. When you change too much, when you change past like your group of friends, then they don't like that, and they want to bring you back. But what part of them is bringing you back? It's like, I understood now. It's like that egregore, that group thought, it's like, and then I realized that everything has that group thought, and it's like, what do I believe? How am I understanding things? And like, what is Islam? And I asked all these questions, and because I never was like an atheist or anything, I would never, because I understand now, but it's like, I had to knock on that door of what I've been told not to do,
Right.
And it seems like the secret is behind those doors, and it's almost like like to protect it, they make it sound horrible. And who's they? The people that understand this, because not everyone can be awakened. It'd be a crazy place.
Oh, it would. No, that's very true. Well, that's something I've thought a lot about too. There's like my mom and I actually, we have a good relationship. She's a Christian, very, very much, into that tradition. But when we talk, we can talk beyond that a little bit, and talking about just love, like love, light, those types of things, and that it all has to resolve to one. Like there's no mathematically possible way that it doesn't. I don't know how that happens. Maybe it's not, very pretty, but at the end of it, it all has to, resolve into that. And I think a lot of the really powerful things aren't intended to be handed down. Even like the Enneagram, for instance, was something that was only, a word of mouth thing until like the 70s when Claudio Naranjo wrote a book about it. And apparently he got in some trouble from some people because he was sharing that out publicly. So I think a lot of the power that's in the traditions is hidden. And also the word of mouth aspect and myth. I think there's a lot to that as well. I've been listening a little bit to Robert Bly's work and Michael Mead's work as well on myth. And, they look into across a lot of different cultures, but, we become such a literal society, I think, that it's very hard for us to see a lesson or a moral in a story. We just see what's on the surface so much. And I think if we dig a little bit deeper, that's where that good stuff is. So I think you've made some pretty cool discoveries.
Yeah. And it's like, I had to change. I mean, it's not just one thing, it's like everything is freaking spiritual and magical. And like, it's a total, this is like, it's like, the logical mind, that's the ego, the conscious mind sees only say 2,000 bits of information, while the subconscious mind sees 4 billion, and it's like, when you open that door, it's a new reality. It's like, this is like an effect realm. I always talk about this is the effect, and I want to go in the cause, but it's like, it's just layers upon layers of understanding. And it's not knowing one thing. That's what I'm saying. That when things get trendy, when law of attraction becomes trendy and the masses do it, that's a trap, and it's like, they think it's just that, but it's not. But that's just trap, because most people are following trends, and trends come and go, and it's so deep, I can't even begin to. People ask me like, what do I do? I'm like, man, are you kidding me? You have to kill yourself, like not literally, but metaphorically,
Right.
And to be honest, like back in 2015, I got married in 2008. My tradition, I was talking about, I'm Indian, and I remember I was doing in 2007, we'd go to like, me and my family, I would go with them, and I would be doing weird things with my hand. Like, I was like, it's crazy. It's like, Ahrar, what's wrong with you? It's like, you're going crazy, And he's like, oh, we have to get married. We have to settle you down, and we have to get you married. That's a solution for my culture. It's like, just get married, Okay, you know what? You're just get married. It's too much.
Yeah.
I guess.
Get him out of the house. That's funny.
But the thing was, I got married to a convert. She's Moldovan. My wife is Moldovan, which is part of like a breakaway province in Russia. And another synchronistic thing is that, I didn't think about this when we got married, but when I was in my journey and like really studying and doing the shadow work and the incantations and the rituals, in the beginning, I realized that everything I ever wanted has come true. Like, I wanted to marry I was always like the underdog, since I was underdog and bullied and all that, I was always rooting for the underdog. So in the 80s, who was the underdog? It was USSR, right? USSR was like the biggest enemy. And I grew up in the 80s, and all the movies like Red Heat and, all those things, like I always like thought it was so awesome, all Russian, and then the Russian girls and this and that. And I ended up marrying a Moldovan, which Moldova was, when the Soviet Union fell in the 1989, Moldova was like the breadbasket of USSR. All the wheat and the wine and everything comes from Moldova. And till this day, they never recovered from that collapse. Till this day, they have not recovered as a country. They're still independent. They're not part of the EU, and they're not part of Russia. And so I went there in 2017, which I did a lot of rituals there. That's like another topic. And it was like going to Russia. You know, there's big statues. It was like the big Soviet bloc housing, and I was walking around like, oh my God, there's nowhere else in the world except, you know, well, North Korea, but they're Asian. You know, there's no white country, white people in the world where it's like USSR, except Moldova and Transnistria. Actually, it's like a breakaway republic. And man, it was like, I at that point I was like, I was not on the fence, but at that point I said, you know what, no matter what happens, I'm not gonna give up like what I'm doing. I know I'm not wrong, and I'm not evil, and you know, it just, I know that that's an illusion. Everything that wants to me to feel guilty, everything that wants me to feel sorry for something, everything that wants me to feel attached and this and that, that's part of the illusion. You know, trying to get my five senses to be in the density doesn't mean I don't love, you know, it doesn't mean I don't love my family, even though I know that they don't exist, you know, except in my mind. But it's like, whatever, I'm not going to get into that. But
no, I know exactly what you mean, you know, and we're talking about, you know, we're talking a little bit about religions or traditions, which do tend to get steeped in more materialistic practices, right? Like the ritual becomes almost lifeless. It's like, I have another friend of mine who he was over here not too long ago. We were talking about some stuff, and we both have similar backgrounds and a propensity for, you know, spirituality and community and those types. And I was like, dude, I've been thinking about going to church, you know, just to like connect with people. And he was like, man, that's so funny you say that. Me too. He's like, but I just can't imagine walking out feeling any more full or anything other than empty, you know, because of the sort of just the traditionality of it and the sort of, you know, just the empty almost ritual, which there's more to it than that. When we dig down deep, you know, there is a spirit, you know, there is a spirit that I think people are trying to connect ultimately, but I think sometimes over time we can just get kind of trapped into, you know, doing, you know, these rites or these rituals, or even in the magical traditions, right? The Hermetics, like he says in transurfing, it's not the, you know, it's not the talisman that holds the power, right? It's the belief. And so ultimately that's what's carrying the thing, not the, you know, not the actual tradition itself. And so I want to be very respectful of any traditions and anyone and how they view the world. You know, I think I mentioned that before, but just to reiterate, but I'd love to talk about the mystical aspects of Islam and how you kind of got into that. You know, you were telling me a little bit about your story getting into 2012 a little bit, which is interesting because that's kind of when things started happening for me. Maybe we could kind of go back there and just talk about what was happening then. Yeah, kind of that awakening kind of process, maybe.
yeah, I mean, my life was pretty like, not like I wasn't like basically I was just like, what the hell are you doing? You're 30, you know, what was I back then? 30, you know, 20, you're 30 years old and you're not doing this and you don't have anything right, you know, get a, you know, I was a police officer and I had all the status, and it's like, but then now it's like I didn't have anything, you know, like, you know what my first job after the police department was?
What's that?
I mean, well, okay, I worked in the mall at Abercrombie.
Okay.
Yeah, Riverside Mall, right here, Abercrombie. Are you kidding? Like, oh gosh, I mean, I was at Abercrombie,
Yeah.
and everybody there was like a younger people, and they're like wealthy, you know, they were going on their yachts, you know, on the weekends, and just, you know, it was like a hookup place, you know, that's what it was. But it's like I had to basically like swallow all this pride and all this kind of stuff, you know. Well, no, that happened in 2012. But when I resigned, in late 2004, and then there was a couple years I did some state work, you know. But then after that, I said, you know what, I don't want to be in law enforcement at all anymore. I just want to just get out, you know. I just want to like do something else. I don't want to be. I know there's something more, you know, and you know, it just led me to like being depressed, and you know, I gained a lot of weight, and And what really helped me, actually, you were talking about it in the podcast. I listened to it, how how changing your physical appearance is like a reflection of your mind changing. So when you change your own image in your own mind, the physical has to change, and so like I started on that. So I read Think and Grow Rich, and I was like, I don't believe this stuff. And I denied all that stuff for 3 years after my mom died. And then in 2015, I had this moment where basically I had my life insurance policy, what is it? Whole life, not whole life. Sorry. When you have the term life, you know what term life insurance is?
I don't actually know.
So term life is like, you can say you're 30 years old, you can get insurance for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years.
Okay.
So after 20 years, if you die at year 20, one day later, then your beneficiaries will not get anything, So I had term life, 15-year term life policy. And I remember like a couple of years before I raised it up to $2 million, and I'm like, you know what? I called them up and I asked them, hey, is it still in effect? And it was like, yes, it's still in effect. I have like 8 more years left, and no, I'm only 8 years into it. And in law, in insurance, there's a stipulation where for the first 2 years of any insurance policy, if you commit suicide, then your beneficiaries don't get any money.
Mm-hmm.
But if you commit suicide a day later after the 2 years, then they get all the money. And then so what I do was I made sure that it was in effect, and I ritualistically got everything ready. I had my shotgun, and I was about to blow my brains, and well, no, I was about to shoot in the chest, because if I shot in the face, then there'd be matter all over the place. And I've seen gunshots, shotgun, blasts. So I got everything ready, and I'm like, and I was okay with going to hell. See, that's another thing. I was okay with all that, because I was like, you know what? At least my family will have money and they'll get over it eventually, And then as soon as I was like, I got that courage to do it, and I was like, I pumped it, and I was getting my finger, it was a long, big shotgun. I was getting it all ready, right? And the garage door opened up. And at the time I was living with my dad. My whole family was, I had a daughter. She was my 9-year-old now, was maybe like 4, at the time. And so anyways, at the garage door opened up, and I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna do it now, because everybody's home. And then something happened after that. I really became a different person. Like it was a part of me that actually committed suicide. I already did it in my mind. I already did it. So, and then I was thinking, like, if I don't care what Allah, thinks, if I don't care what Allah says, then why should I care what, some random person says about me? Why should I care about like what my dad thinks, that I'm not doing the right thing? You know what I mean? So like it gave me, it really, I look back and I'm like, you know what? I did commit suicide, but I killed a lower aspect of me that, and I had to do that, and from that point on, I totally, it was Ramadan, was a week later or 2 weeks later. And then that Ramadan, I lost like 30 pounds of fat. I was 70, I was 180, 175 pounds, and I'm short, and I was like big, and I got to 138, and I was looking good, and I felt like a new person, and the interesting thing was, the people that didn't see me for a long time, they're like, oh, you lost too much weight, you look better back then, and then it's like, I realized nobody's going to encourage you, no one's going to encourage you past whatever they encourage themselves with, and it just, from that point, 2015, I got into the law of attraction, which I was getting frustrated, because like, wait, it's not working. It's like, I'm saying these things, but until I changed my implicit belief, nothing happened, and then, John Ashraf,
I don't actually know.
You heard of him? So he had this really awesome like series of lectures that got me through a lot, because he was more like an entrepreneur, you know, like a lot of the people that are, they're just doing it for like better health and whatnot. But I'm like, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to, of course we need money in this reality, but what is money? You have to redefine everything. I mean, the money is nothing. It's just a fiat currency, and then you get into like the magic of words and, oh gosh, and then numbers and then geometria and then, shit. And then the thing is, there's so many conspiracy theories that people can, I was trapped in that hole for like 2 years, 3 years.
Me too.
Like flat earth and freaking reptilians and David Icke and all that stuff for ages, and only when I busted out of that, that's when things changed big time. And that's when like people around me, they didn't want to hang out with me anymore. They're like, oh, that's not Islamic. Oh, you can't, that's black magic and this and that. I'm like, I started doing sigil work and reading about sigils and symbolism, which I didn't understand as much. And I couldn't explain it to anybody because I didn't understand it internally, until I experienced it, until I did the rituals, I did the soul ties, I did the candle rituals, I did all that stuff. And then it's like, that's when it's like some insight came, and then when I turned 40 years old, like something clicked in me. It's like, wow, I understand a lot more. And then it's funny because in Islam, they say you're not mature until you're 40 years old. And like all the prophets, they got their prophethood at age 40, except Prophet Isa or Jesus, and he was 33 years old, But the thing was, he was born, I mean, that's another thing. It's like Christ energy, it's like, it's not a thing. It's just energy. That's why it's, has no father and immaculate birth. It's something born of the feminine mind that, if your masculine mind is out of whack, it's going to feed it just 5 cents illusionary senses. If you had a nice life, then it's going to feed you that. It's going to feed the subconscious mind that. If you had a rough life, then life is rough and dog eat dog world, and the rich get richer, all that stuff.
Right.
And after 40, because I was studying Kabbalah for a couple of years before that, and I didn't understand as much until I turned 40 years old. And then I just understood more, and I understood that it was like it's just like it's an all facet kind of lifestyle. It's not just one thing, it's how you eat, it's how you breathe, it's how you freaking go to the bathroom, how you react to somebody cutting you off, all those things. It's not one thing, it's everything, and it's like, and Islamically, we're told to live in the awareness of Allah, like it's called like, it's like God consciousness, like, but where's God? Where's Allah? He's everywhere, but he's not in the creation. He's in the fifth, he's above the throne. He's on his throne above the seventh heaven. And then I was like, what the hell is the seventh heaven? What? And then why is it that we go around the Kaaba 7 times? The Ka and the Ba, if you know that in ancient Egyptian tradition, the Ka is the body, and the Ka is the spirit, and the Ba is the body. And the Mer, like Merkaba, the Mer is the light. So it's like you have to circumambulate counterclockwise. Your chakras are circumambulating counterclockwise to bring in the light, And it's like, but we go on this black stone, which is 6 sides to it. And it's actually like when you open a cube up, it's a cross. You know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Look, when you open a cube, when you open a cube, look. Okay, 1, 2.
Oh,
3.
yeah. Like if you were to unfold it, like out of paper.
Yeah. You want to unfold it. It is, this folds up, right? So
Right.
Look at this. See what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay, and then the Kaaba, which is it's a square, it's a cube, right?
Yeah.
Which is also 6. That is a triangle. See?
Yeah.
See? 6. It's a hexagon, Saturn, like what the heck? So it's like it's not worshiping Saturn, it's understanding that this is the body is that that carbon-based life form, which is not you, it's just a reflection. It's the end point, and it's like to go around it counterclockwise instead of clockwise. It's like saying that you're not under the control of Chronos, if you're going clockwise, then you're copying Chronos's rotation. And it's like it's a ritual, and it's a metaphor to understand what energy is and how to kind of understand that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, aren't we carbon based? Isn't the body carbon based?
Mm-hmm.
So like carbon is a crystalline structure of a hexagon. So if you see all the carbon bonds, they're hexagons, and then like carbon is the 6th element,
Mm-hmm.
And then it also has atomic weight of 12, so it's like that's where you get the 666 from. 6 electrons, protons, 6 neutrons,
Wow.
Yeah, so it's not like, see, when people have become too materialized, they kind of like, they've been told that through the material that's evil, this and that, and then that's what they believe, but it's really deep, so that's when I started asking this question about the cube to like prominent scholars, that I know from Southern California, and they're like, I remember this one time, okay, I was watching Super Bowl, I think it was like 2019. Yeah. Who played 2019?
The Super Bowl? I'm sure it was the Patriots. It had
Yeah,
to
Patriots and
I
maybe
don't
like I forget. But okay, so I remember that so it was like a bunch of guys, and like, we were there at the house, and there's just some imams there that I know in our community, and I was sitting between one imam and the other imam. We have 2 imams in our mosque, it's a big place, and I was sitting in the middle of both of them, and I looked to my left. I'm like, I asked him some questions, like the Kaaba and why do we go around 7 times, and he's like, oh, because we've been told to, and Abraham's wife did this, and we just follow her to honor the ritual. But it's like, fine, that's what you tell like a child, but the real understanding is like, well, how come, Prophet Ezekiel in Christianity and Judaism, he went to the 7 heavens, and then Prophet Ezekiel in Islam is Idris, and he went to the 7 heavens, but that's all we know about him. We don't know much more. And it's like, whatever I didn't get through doing my own research, Islamic research, I got through all the other spiritual texts, like Judaism and Christianity. And it's like, I put those pieces together, on my own self. But then who's Enoch? That's Christian and Judaism, but it's the same as Mercury, it's Mercury, but Mercury is also Hermes, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Hermes is also Thoth, and Hermes is also, what's the Thoth and Tahuti. It's the same energy that's scribe of the gods, meaning it's the energy that teaches you like language and all these kind of liberal arts.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And I was telling him that, and he's like, you know what? I want to watch my favorite players in this commercial. And the commercial was a cognac commercial. He didn't want to talk to me, and he wanted to watch a cognac commercial. And here's this imam guy. And I'm like, after that point, I'm like, you know what? I don't even have to ask them. It's like, it's my ego wanting some kind of validation at that point. Like, you know what? I'm not going to go to anybody else. I'm not going to explain anything I know to anybody, because it's all ego, wanting some validation. Oh yeah, really cool. Okay, I want to do what you do. No, I don't care what everybody thinks about me.
Right. Yeah, it's so funny. I get that too. Like, I do it to myself, like, where I'm like, I just want to be right. So I have to ask myself, what do I want out of this? Like, for instance, if I'm, asking a favor of somebody, or if I actually want something from them, right? Versus if I just want to be right, like maybe I'm in a fight with my sister, like an argument or something. It's like, what do I want? If I want to get whatever the thing is that I want, or I want her to understand, then that completely changes the strategy from wanting to be right. I think when we're coming from that egoic place so often, it's like, I just want to be right. That's what I want. And if you're right, what happens in the argument? Usually you alienate yourself from the other person, and they don't pick up on your perspective at all. In fact, they go further away from it. They'll be like, nah, they'll just retreat into their own beliefs, anyway. But I think it's great that you're asking these types of questions, surrounding this stuff. I don't think, I don't think it could or should be offensive to be curious about the mysteries of creation, right? Like, isn't that actually, wouldn't like, Allah, the spirit of God, encourage that, right? And like, from a spitting game perspective, it's like, look, I want to study this. You should looking into black magic to understand what that is, sigil work, whatever. It's like, look, I just want to know you better. I'm just trying to, get a better idea of what's going on here. And I think there's a lot of mystery that's kind of, surrounding a lot of this stuff. But once we kind of get into it, you said that you were reading Think and Grow Rich, and at first you didn't believe it. Yeah, I can relate to that. But maybe we can talk about some of those concepts and kind of how they're correspondent as well, because I'm definitely seeing, I didn't get the Enoch connection to Mercury, but I knew about Mercury and Hermes. I'm starting to see these planets too, and the stars that are also Greek gods, and it's just crazy.
Plain nets of energy, different, and then it's like, it's weird because, like, if you think back, okay, were people, in the time of the prophet, this is like 650s, 650s, common era. And it's like, they didn't have calendars like how we have it now. They didn't have, okay, it's 5 o'clock or it's 3 o'clock, it's just like, they went by the cycle of the sun and the moon, and it was all one day. It was all one day. So it's not like, oh, it's Friday today. When I was listening to the radio today, which I don't do that much because I was charging my phone up as I was coming down here, and they're like, oh, it's Friday, TGF Friday, and everybody's happy on Friday, But then Sunday they're not happy because they got to go to work on Monday. It's like, why is that day dictating that? It's just an illusionary concept. So it's like it's like you have to melt the illusion within yourself. You don't have to melt it out there. You melt it within yourself. So I stopped living in the construct of Saturn. I'm over Saturn. I'm not inside Saturn. I'm over it, so I'm past it. Meaning, like, I'm not saying, oh, I'm past it, I'm better than somebody. No, it's like, to understand the concept of the illusion of time, but also to utilize it. It was created for me to utilize, for me to benefit from, not to be trapped inside. I look at everything as a platform for me, as a stepping stone to raise up in consciousness. And time is one of those things. And even anything bad that happens is one of those things too, So like, it says in Islam, a true believer, a true Muslim, all a Muslim means is someone that has submitted their will to the will of the divine. And Islam means someone that has submitted their will to the will of the divine, and they believe in a life after death, meaning like this life is a illusion, and there's a real life after this life, after this transition, and there's only one power, there's only one power that is all, you know, and that's what a Muslim is. And throughout, after the time of the Prophet, after the death, that got changed into what we think of Islam now. It was a broad term, you know, like Zoroastrianism. Zoroastrians were Muslims too, you know, because they believed in a life after death, and they believed in one divine power. They were Muslims, like Fire Sabians, you know, Christians. That's why they were people of the book. But it's like, but as time went on and it got institutionalized, and you know, different powers kind of took over, and there's war, and the Mongols came and destroyed mountains of books. So many books that bagged the Tigris-Euphrates River was in black ink for weeks. That's how many books were destroyed, you know, in Baghdad, you know. And it's like, then you talk to a Muslim now, and they're like, oh, show me proof, hadith and sunnah, you know, show me some hadith, which is like an account or saying of the Prophet, you know, like the Beatitudes, you know, right? Is that the Beatitudes?
Beatitudes.
Beatitudes, yeah. You know, and like the red letters, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like that concept in Islam is like the hadith. And there's like weak hadiths, there's you know, like who knows, and then there's like strong, you know, definite hadith. And it's like, but who put together that institution? It's like you're asking the people that created the institution for that same information to take you outside of that, meaning that past it, you know, past the construct. So it's like the mosque, you know, like ever since the, you know, COVID started, like the mosques were like 6 feet apart and no shoulder to shoulder, and you got to wear a mask and this and that. I didn't go because I understood that that's not a mosque. You know, that's just a governmental institution. You know, it's a 501c3.
That's right.
Allow it to exist, you know, and everybody that's the people that are saying, no, you got to be 6 feet apart and this and that. They're just parroting what their masters are telling them, you know, and even now they're doing it when other spiritual communities are like stronger in their faith and they're together. And it's like Muslims are like, you know, so indoctrinated by the system, you know, it's like, and it's, you see it now, you know, it's like, wow, they're so like material, you know, so involved in the 5 senses, and they think they're right. And it just, it not that it makes me angry. It's just that ever since I got on TikTok in November, I started my TikTok in November, and it just kind of became what it is now. And I wanted to be a place where, you know what, when I do these rituals, I'm not doing it to show people. I'm actually doing a freaking ritual. I don't do it all the time. That is the ritual. The ritual itself is me doing it to bring down a certain energy, and me doing the physical thing is like the body responding to the energy being in like in my lower consciousness now, you know, like, you know, so like I'm not walking around here doing that all the time. It's like when you do a ritual, you do it once and that's it. You know, like importance and all that stuff with transurfing, where you don't think about it, you know, right, after you do it. You kind of let go, you know. And that's where like a lot of the stuff you talked about in your prosperity and like all that kind of stuff, like law of attraction and transurfing, and it's really like it took me to the next level. Personally, it did. You know, I remember, you know, I work in Mojave Desert, and I work for like a cannabis lab, you know, like I run a facility, and we're out in California City, and, you know, it's lonely out there, you know, and the solace has been like all these teachers like you that have like took me to the next level, because I know I recognize that even having that position at this place in the desert was part of my part of like something that was supposed to happen for me, like a manifestation, you know. Like I don't like using that word a lot, but you know,
I've got to get over it. I've like had such a cross with that to bear, where I'm like, man, but whatever. It is accurate, and people use it, and so I gotta. It's so fun. It's so funny. It's easy to get frustrated. It's easy to get frustrated too. Like, I completely understand that from my perspective. Seeing kind of how, just whatever dogmatic kind of thing. It could even be science, right? Like, there's a lot of dogmatic people who, assert their belief in science very often. And, I think that it's important to filter through that and dig a little bit, deeper, and get into some of because it's like, for instance, so a Christian, for instance, would say, oh, well, all these things happen in the book of Acts, these events, but they can't happen now. It's okay for them to have happened all these years ago, but if it happened now, that's not, there's something wrong. Like, that can't be the case. When I think maybe, a lot of this stuff is, again, metaphorical, metaphysical, or even mythical in nature, explaining different processes, like to go back to maybe Neville Goddard or somebody like that. Yeah. And not to say that, I'm 100% in agreement with everything that he said, but to look at it that way, because we take everything so literal, and to get into the more transformational aspects of it, and the things that are in the text, like Think and Grow Rich, and even like the manifestation sort of books and stuff, because that's really what, I think that's really what all these things are trying to explain, is the process of existence, what life is, how to explore and navigate the reality that we're in.
Yeah, you are in Barbados. Okay. Yeah, you are in Barbados. That's what Abdullah said, right? Abdullah is a Sufi mystic. Abdullah is like a slave of Allah. That's what that means. Abdullah. And it's interesting because Neville Goddard, like, he talks about, like, you have to be all the parts. You got to play all the parts. That's what got me like, wow, you know what part am I playing? All my life I was playing the part of just the background actor, and then it's like, no, I want to be the freaking lead. And I just can't be a lead. I have to be an excellent background actor. I got to be noticed by the crew, and then I have to do some, like, I have to prove to the crew that I can do it, and then I have to do all these other things, and then I get a chance to go into, the a speaking role, and then I get my SAG cards,
right?
And then it's not. It's like a movie. It's like life is like a movie, But it's also like you have to become like Abraham. What Abraham did, like, he meditated, he contemplated the stars, and then, like, all these prophets and stuff, it's actually states of consciousness within you that you have to realize, instead of staying in a lower state, because the more hate I get, the more I know that it's like, it's real, you know what I mean? And the more I don't let the hate bother me, then the more other people are like, wow, what are you doing? I really changed my life and this and that. And it's like, wow, it's like, this is real, and there is a actual benefit that you can sense in your physical life. Everybody wants a nice life. I mean, I do too, Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. But there's a process, there's blueprints of how to do it, and you just have to be willing to let go of the things that you're holding on to that are part of your old self that cannot exist with the higher self, or that next version of you can't exist. I can't win some physique competition and eat at McDonald's, You have to let go of McDonald's to, you have to let go. People are afraid to let go, because they're still psychologically so young, they're like adolescents, actually. They say that the jinn Your concept. Are you familiar with the concept of jinn?
I've heard it, but if you don't mind, yeah, just to read.
So jinn basically are when Allah was creating Adam, there's these things that were before the man. Basically, these jinns were made of smokeless fire, and you can look at them as like entities of like the reptilian mind, and they have like they have all kinds of, there's Muslim jinn, there's Jewish, there's all kinds of jinns, and they have their own world in the unseen, in a higher plane of existence. Your eyes can't see it, but you can sense them. You can sense something in the room looking at you, all that kind of stuff, like sixth sense. It's kind of like that. They're not spirits. They're more like, I look at them as terrestrial thought form entities that only exist in the terrestrial illusion, for the five senses. And they're attached to you like reptilian mind, So what was I saying? So they're like a 12-year-old mindset. So a 12-year-old you can piss off easily, right? They're triggered, or you can kind of manipulate them too, right? A 12-year-old, you can manipulate them to be your slave. My daughter's 9 years old. I mean, I'm not saying she's a jinn, but I mean, she understands these things because we talk about it. She's like, oh, fairies are this small, and like she draws mermaids and things like that. And I cultivated that. Like I allowed her to fantasize and read these dragon books and dragon myths and all that stuff. And as she got older, I explained to her they're just like, because she loved what do you call them? Those horses with the
unicorn?
Unicorns, yeah. She's loved unicorns, like every child does.
I'm guilty, guilty as well. Sorry.
and I'm like, oh, you want to see unicorn? I'm going to show you unicorn. And I took her. We had her doing horse riding classes, and she's like, Papa, are you going to show me a unicorn? It's not a unicorn. I was like, it is a unicorn. It just, you have to see that the horn doesn't exist for your eyes, your physical eyes. It exists for the internal eye. And that all the unicorn signifies is the pineal gland. And horses are one of the animals with a very active pineal gland, and like now she understands that. Maybe when she's 5 years old, it was a hard concept for her to understand, but as she got older, and now she understands that, it's in a higher dimension, that unicorn, but in the physical, it's a horse, and like, it's just all kinds of things, dragons and, different animals are spirit guides. And it just, that part has been lost in the religious, dogmatic, materialistic kind of life. But that's falling apart now. Look at the state of, religion. I'm not even going to say spirituality, because spirituality is not religion. Religion means religare, right? Bonus, I think his name is something Bonacci, Santos Bonacci.
Santos Bonacci, yeah. I've looked into his work a bit. Yeah.
See, I deep dived into all these like fringe guys, but because he's only talking about the law and all that and the words, right? He's already made himself that expert. He can't talk about anything else. He kind of like set his own kind of like image. Unless he changes drastically, then he'll lose a lot of people, And, I can understand him. But in real life, I know he knows all these other things. But like religion means religare, which is like the prefrontal cortex, it's just the binding, it's the binding of the intellect. And if I break my arm, I'm going to go to the hospital and get bound, but I'm going to take the binding off and then that'll be stronger after all, the physical therapy and all that stuff. But the thing is, people have been tricked to keep the binding on. And that has made their intellect atrophied. And that's what it is atrophied. And the way to do it, you have to unbind it. So you have to you have to go past the binding, past the masses, past the egregore of the group, past your comfort zone,
And that's what you've been doing. I think that's really cool too, that you've been able to reach out to folks, it's like we said earlier, it's like when you deal with your own thing, now you get to pass that information on to other people, who may be asking some of these questions themselves, like they maybe want a sense of freedom. It seems like, your story is incredible, by the way, of like almost, not being here. I'm very glad that you're still here. I'm glad that garage door opened. And I can see how.
Or maybe this is the heaven.
Yeah. Maybe do that. But there's an old, I think it's a Buddhist saying. It's like if God gets in your way, cut him. Maybe it's a samurai thing, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Where that's always hung. I think I saw that in like a Kill Bill or something, but it's always kind of stuck with me. And also it kind of makes me think of Fight Club when you say that a part of you did die that day, at the end of the movie at Fight Club, there's that metaphorical part where he kills himself, but he's still alive. He kills that part of himself, the Tyler Durden sort of part of himself, or he, integrates that. So I'm not really sure. That's the metaphor of the thing. So it makes me think of that a little bit too. But yeah, I think facing the thing that you consider to be holy, I got kicked out of a self-help group, right? Like who gets kicked out of a self-help group? But what's that?
Well, tell me, you can't just say that.
Well, it's a long story, but the point of it is that I faced, I faced, I guess, a mentor or an idol or someone who I viewed up on a pedestal and was banished by them, right? Like they were like, no, you can't, you're not allowed anymore in here. And so that was insulting, but also freeing. And I can imagine that experience you're having where you're like, you know what, I don't care what, because I can only imagine, growing up in a certain way, it's like, you don't want to disappoint this figure, whoever that is, that father figure, archetype figure. Right. And so finally saying, you know what, fuck it. I don't care. Like I've got to be me. I've got to do my own thing. There's a quote in Emerson Self-Reliance where he's like, talking to someone and the person's like, well, if you're going to obey your, self urges and the things that are within you, then how do you know that those urges are from above and not from below? Like they're not from the devil. And then Emerson says, well, if I'm the devil's child, then the devil's child, I'm just going to have to be, he's like, I can't suppress who I am. I can't not be the expression that I am. It doesn't matter if you think it's all okay or not. So just a lot about your experience makes me think of that, and breaking free from those egregores, from those ties that bind, those ideas, those, sort of religious or just, kind of materialistic, traditional sort of stereotypes.
Yeah. And the thing was, when I started to get past the binding, aspect of what I've been told, what religion, what Allah is, it's like told by a system. I think it was Oscar Wilde that says once, as soon as you label something, you have reduced it or something like that. You know what I'm talking about? Like when you label something, you have already made it into something less, just by label. It's something like that. I forgot. It's Oscar Wilde that said that.
Cool.
And what happened was, I had to become stronger when I came back to the group again, because I never said I'm the atheist and I'm bashing Muslims. No, I never did that ever. And I don't do that even still. And people are like, oh, you're not Muslim, so take your name Muslim mystic off. We don't claim you. It's like, if you don't claim me, what are you talking about? Like, no one has the right to claim anything, So it's like, you can't claim anything, but it's like, I understand their frustration though, they have been utterly left in the dark, without any kind of tools. And every time a tool gets presented to them, they're dogmatic, kind of like they hit a wall of like, no, you can't do that. Oh, I need proof. I need proof. It's like the ego wants proof. It's all ego. I mean, the ego wants proof to move, to go outside the comfort zone, and just, but it's an individualized journey too. It's not a group effort, which you can go to groups and get tools and insights. But if you look at yourself as a follower of a group, then psychologically, internally, you're underneath that construct,
Mm-hmm.
But I don't label myself anything. I don't call myself Sunni or Shia. I just submitted my ego, my will, to the will of divine. I'm Muslim. That's it. And then, and this is an illusion. This is dunya. Dunya means illusion. Literally means an illusion. It's like, this is called the dunya, which is the Maya, right? The Maya, journey, whatever. Every spiritual tradition talks about this is an illusion. So I was like, well, if it's an illusion, it has constructs. It has a way of operating of that energy, of the infinite energy of the divine. It comes in finite forms. So like Allah has 99 names. You probably heard that before. But before it was 99 names, it was like thousands of names. They just made into 99 names. Some Khalifa or some empire, I forget the date, but they made it into 99 attributes. But it's like there's much more than that, So I look at Shiva as an attribute of Allah too. And people are like, oh, Shiva, that's a Hindu god, that's paganism, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, it's not. It's just a anthropomorphic manifestation of a certain energy for the logical mind to comprehend. And in that tradition, it's Shiva, the destroyer. And in the Arabic tradition, it's Al-Mut, the destroyer. It's like, it's like you can call on these different names, which are frequencies and vibrations. And literally by you saying that word, because it's in the collective consciousness that it means this thing, you invite that energy to come through you. That's where you get into the aspects of like chanting and, the different, even looking at sigils, and doing the goetic practices, like your eyes looking at that line and tracing it, you're opening up neurological pathways that have been dormant,
Wow, that's
and
cool.
even though it might, if you start drawing sigils and just drawing it every day, like these sigils here, but like if you do that, it might, to the logical mind, it seems stupid and silly, but it's actually having it's basically tunneling your way through all that stuff, and then all of a sudden you hit that energy, something happens to you in your life, you meet somebody, and then that is a personification of that demon, the business demon, like my boss.
So
Did he have that part out? But I'm a demon for somebody else too. I might be a light bearer. You're a demon to somebody else. I mean, all a demon is a Damien. A Damien, a friend, inner genius. That's what demon means. It's not bad. It's like we've been told it's bad. That's why in these like movies like Conjuring, they're trying to find the name. When they find the name, that's when they can expel the demon out. Like once you find the name is the formula, actually. So Ka is a certain attribute that is guarding the pineal gland. There's 72 demons, 72 conspirers of Set, the 72 Goisha. 7 plus 2 is 9. 9 is number of completion. 108 names of Brahman. 8 plus 1 is 9. 99 names of Allah. 9 plus 9 is 18. 1 plus 8 is 9. You get the thing. 99 names of Elohim. 99 names of 99 demons of the Goisha. It's just that they are the terrestrial energy that are basically, it's like the chakra around your pineal gland. They're guarding it. And it's like you have to go through it. You have to kind of like, I don't know, it's like they control you or you are like one with them, but they're part of your, I don't know, it's really, it gets kind of mushy,
Okay.
But it's very, but it's very powerful, you know, like path working. Have you done that before?
I haven't. No.
Have you heard of path working?
Mm-mm.
So path working is like basically it's like a series of poems that you say in like through a ritual, you know, like you meditate, you kind of get in a quiet space. Like I did it like in a really crazy way. Like when I was doing it back in before 9/11, maybe not 9/11, before COVID happened. And guess where I live?
Corona, California. Yeah, I was watching some of your stuff.
Yeah. And before all this stuff happened, I used to do like, you know, because I was on this path for a while, and I used to do rituals like in the middle of the street. I took chalk and I would do the sigils and the, you know, in the middle of the night with the full moon and all this kind of stuff. And then it's like, it's almost like the divine created this life for me, and this had to happen. You know, it's like, otherwise I wouldn't be here right now in the career I have right now, you know? And it's like, oh, how can you say that? Other people suffered. It's their dimension. You know, this is my dimension. And it's like, I can focus on the suffering of other people and just, and not, and be feeling shitty myself. And then from that state of frequency, I'm eating and I'm feeling bad more, I'm eating more depressed. Who's that going to help?
Right.
And now it's like, you're doing these things and you're creating something and you're helping other people out. That is, you know, that's because I'm not focusing on what they lose.
Problems. Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's for path working was basically like, yeah, I'll send you a link. I'll send you an ebook for my path working, and it's just powerful, man. It's just it's like you say these series of phrases that is like muddy, you know, muddy lake, sun rising with a orange hue, dew on the grass, and then you kind of say that phrase and you imagine that within you, and you're almost like you're tapping into some level of consciousness, you know, through these sayings, these kind of mental images that your mind starts popping up, you know, it's abstract kind of. And then what that does is and then you focus on the sigil, which is the anagram, you know, and then that's like a basically like a code, you know, because it's like, it's just lines, it's all energy, right? It's all right. So it's like, then that with the words, it kind of it combines those two, you know, in your mind, and it takes time for it to manifest in your life, you know. But you know, like 3-4 months after I did that, my life totally changed. Like it changed. And I mean, I credit to that, but it's like, it's all the things, you know, it's not just one thing.
Right.
You know, it's like King Solomon, you know, the story of King Solomon, he made a circle and a triangle and this and that. It's like, okay. And I was like asking like people, these prophets are human. And if one human can get to that level, then all humans can, you know. They're not, you know, if all humans can't obtain that level of consciousness, then those people were not human. And if they're not human, why am I listening to what they're doing, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the sigil work, the you know, that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Discovered that?
Yeah. Basically, like each there's so 72 demons of the Goetia, which are the 72 demons the King Solomon controlled. Okay, and basically they were created like in the 1800s, but it was all from, you know, teachings of like you know, old books of like the Goetia and the clip off and all that kind of stuff. And basically, you know, each demon has their own attributes. You know, each inner genius has their own attributes, and basically you can invoke that from within you. So I have a specific goal in my life, you know, entrepreneur, you know, different projects. So like, why would I call on? So I specifically looked up the attributes of these demons, and I basically did that path working for my mastermind. You know, like how you have a mastermind in the physical.
Mm-hmm.
you have a mastermind in the spiritual,
Right.
but the mastermind in the higher realms start to create your physical mastermind. So like the people around me, they're part of my mastermind, but I can see those attributes of those demons in them, you know, like they have their own, you know, stuff, but like, you know, some people, like I know some millionaires and they're driven by, you know, power, or they're driven by like wanting to control, like, you know, this area, or, you know what I mean? It's like they're controlled by their demons,
Yeah.
but like, it's almost like I'm part of that mastermind group. They don't control me. It's like we all in it together, you know, and I really, you know, it really happened because of the path working. But the thing is, just like in any tradition, like in voodoo, you have to be invited, you know, you have to get initiated, and you have to get initiated with the Goisha by, you know, the boss, basically the light bearer, right? The morning star, Lucifer. So it's like, that is like, once you have, that's the big boss. Once you have the okay with the boss, then you can work with these other entities, you know. But people don't do that, and they start working with like they start working with some demon, right? But then that's when they get tricked, because all of a sudden you're going in there thinking that you can control this entity or this thought form, but you never did the work of like respecting the process of getting the okay from the higher ups, you know. It's like, it's very much so like a army, you know. You have the generals and lieutenants, you know, as above so below, right? It's so I mean, that's something you have to do yourself, you know. You have to meditate, you have to, you know, you get initiated, you have an awakening experience, you know, I saw something happen to me. Like I locked myself up in an office that I had a marijuana delivery service out of, you know, and it was not legal, you know, and and it's funny because I was a police officer at one point, you know, and you know, well, that's another thing. Before that incident happened with the garage door, I went to see a psychiatrist that my family told me to see, and I was asking her about like cannabis, and she's like, "Oh, stay away from that. You know, we're gonna prescribe some SSRIs for you, and it's gonna make you feel better." And you know, and I'm like, okay. When she said that, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do it myself. And then cannabis really, you know, helped me to get high. You know,
Yeah.
higher, yeah. And it's like, it's not for everyone, and but it was for me, you know. And so fast forward, this is 2016. I was reading all these like what Kundalini awakening, and I'm like, how come it's not happening to me? And what the hell is it? And I don't, you know. So I locked myself in a room because I read, you know, Prophet Zechariah. You know Zechariah in Christianity.
Mm-hmm. I do.
Yeah, well, we have that. We have the same. You know, we believe in the same prophets and the lineage of Isaac and all that. You know, Mary, and so Zechariah was basically the caretaker of Mary. You know, right? In your tradition, is Zechariah the caretaker of Mary?
I can't answer that. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
I don't. I wish I did. I've kind of fallen out with a lot of the stuff that, you know, I did know that stuff years ago,
Mhm.
but I kind of have not, you know, kept up with that.
So Zechariah, one of the stories is he meditated for like 3 days where he didn't talk to anybody, he didn't say anything, and you know, and I did that. I stayed in the office with no windows for 3 days. I only went to the bathroom to go number 2, and number 1 I was peeing in a gallon jugs. I had like 2 gallons full of pee, you know, like this is like I was taking seriously, and I had a like a recliner, and I just sat there like, and I had my I had the sigils everywhere, and like I had the binaural beats going in the background, and it's pitch dark, right? And so I was meditating for like 3 days, and the third day, when I'm like, you know what, I don't care if it happens or not. It really allowed me to like think about a lot of things. Being locked up 3 days, I told my wife I'm not going to be around for 3 days. I'm doing this. I don't care, you know. And no one called me. I did it like real, you know. And then what happened was, when I said I don't care what happens, when I lost the importance of it, right? When I let go of the importance and all that stuff, and how it should be, and this is not happening. When I don't care, you know. If it happens, it happens. It doesn't, I don't care.
Yeah.
That's when like I felt like something. I felt a like some kind of like, you know, when you have like bubbling of gas, when you know, got a fart.
Yeah.
It's like kind of like something like that happened, like bubbling. But then I felt the bubble like coming up. I felt it coming up, and I felt it like I'm closing my eyes at this point, you know, and I felt it going up, and I got to my esophagus, and I literally physically my esophagus like it was getting like, you know, like something coming out of it. Remember the movie Abyss?
Yeah. Like that.
Like really that thing, but it was light. It was like bright light type of thing coming out, kind of like Abyss, and like the movie Never Ending Story, that flying thing, you know, with the hair.
Mm-hmm.
Forgot the name of it, but
Ray used the boy's name. I can't remember the
creature, you know, that he was flying.
I do. Yeah.
Like that and Abyss. It's kind of between that, but no eyes, nothing, you know. But and then so it literally, I felt it. Like I was seeing this in my mind. Like I'm seeing it in my mind. Like I'm looking down and I can tell where my foot is, you know. But I had my eyes closed, and this thing, it came out, and it was like coming out of my mouth, and I had my mouth open. It like, and I opened up, and it was like coming out, and it did like a little like around my legs, and like a little pet, you know, like around like this, and it came up around me, and then all of a sudden I opened my mouth again, like physically. I was not in my dreams or anything. I was opening my mouth, and it went back down, and then I was like, I wasn't scared. I was just like, wow, you know. And then all of a sudden I saw this, like, I had my eyes closed, and I saw this like this ball of light. It's a very small ball of light coming closer and closer, and it was basically like a ball of lightning, like Thor. You know, Thor is Lucifer. You know that?
I didn't know that. No.
Yeah, Thor is Lucifer. I mean, in that pantheon, you know, he's the light. He's the god of thunder. He's Zeus. Yeah.
Crazy.
So,
yeah, that was yeah. That's. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Continue.
And then when that thing came, it didn't say anything to me. I didn't say anything. It just kind of like hovered by my face while I had my eyes closed, and I was like just looking at it, and then it just kind of went away, you know. And then at that point, I was like, oh, I just was quiet, and I just went home, and you know, and I started to meditate more, and you know, and then like a few weeks later, what happened was what happened? Yeah. Let's see what happened. Oh yeah, so that was 2016. And then it was 2017. I went to Moldova for the first time.
Right.
After being married since 2008, and my wife goes back every year for like a month. All right. And in that, from 2008 to 2017, I never visited her home country the whole time. And so I'm like, you know, she's like, oh, let's go to, you know, I want to go to Moldova. And I'm like, I didn't have a job or anything. I just had money saved up, and I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm going to go. It's like, and I went, and, you know, I did the rituals there, and, you know, I read, that's when I started to do the path working at that point. And then what I did was I read, I was reading some Goetic stuff, and also I read the Necronomicon.
Okay. The Book of the Dead. Yeah.
Yeah. Book of the Dead by Aleister Crowley. And what it is just channeled work, you know, it's channeled. Everything is channeled, you know, and I was reading a passage where it was just gibberish, you know, like it was just gibberish, but I was reading it difficultly, transliteration of some gibberish, and I was reading it, and then I did the meditation, and then I went to bed. And that night, I had very, very vivid dreams of a certain entity that came to me, and it was Clonic. And then I looked up Clonic, and it was a demon, and it was just really, and that after that point, I was like, I knew I went past a certain line within my own comfort zone, and I was like, you know what, there's no going back. And then from that point on, I was there for 3 months, Moldova, and no one speaks English, it's all Russian or Romanian, and it's like they have like these playgrounds in between the big buildings, and it's like a holdover from the Soviet Union, which literally it's like Chernobyl. It's like right. Chernobyl.
Right, I saw it.
I'll show you pictures. Like I took so much pictures, but it's my external hard drive, and it's like part of me didn't want to look at it, because I felt like, oh, I want to go back, but now it's like I'm looking at it, and it just wow, incredible, man. It's just all kinds of rituals I did there, and it was just next level stuff, and then the more I did that kind of stuff, the more I realized that people at like the higher echelon of society, they don't laugh at this kind of stuff, but they don't necessarily do the rituals. They just have other people kind of explaining that to them, and they look at their charts. And I know people that look at their astrological charts, and they're multimillionaires. Mm-hmm. Like this is people think that all these 1%ers, they're evil, this and that. It's not true, actually. It's not. It's what I'm not against that. I'm not against wealth and all that kind of stuff, but I don't know, I want to get into that, but a lot of people get turned off by that, and that's what the spiritual community now, it's like they're turned off by wanting a greater life, and wanting material desires. But it's like we are material, we're part of the material, but I know that's an illusion. It's all an illusion. If you're attached to it, then you will suffer. Like Buddha said, life is suffering. It's suffering when you are attached to the physical. Mm-hmm. You're going to suffer. Someone dies, you're going to suffer. When you lose this thing and your car gets old, there's a new model comes out, you're going to suffer. Everything is suffering. And I actually think like, man, that's pretty
nihilistic.
Like, I don't like this.
Dark, bro.
Yeah, dark. But then I realized, wow, everything is suffering, but it's suffering if you're attached to that. But you're still going to suffer. If something happens to a family member, I'm still going to be sad, but it's not going to overtake my life and take me down a deep, dark hole,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you can acknowledge it, I think, and not get swept up in it, right? And so there's definitely some good boundaries there as far as just the emotional investment and the involvement, I love Buddhism, and I like to think of life less as suffering and more of like, I think of struggle. I think of conflict, maybe like conflict, like in a script, like without the duality, we don't have this physical playground. It doesn't exist without that. So I try to think of it, as much as I can in that way. Now, Jeff in the chat just said Falcor. Falcor is the dragon from the Nordic story. Yeah. And I wanted to talk a little bit more because this is where, my tradition's panties get in a big twist is the idea of Lucifer, right? Because that's Satan, right? That's the devil. And, so in the Christian, traditions, that is unspeakable. You can't talk about that. But, with Napoleon Hill's work, Outwitting the Devil, obviously, I think that's not necessarily about talking to Lucifer, but that's about like talking to this negative half of the atom. Such a powerful book. And with your journey and just saying, you know what, I don't want to be confined I want to explore, like I want to dance.
Yeah.
You want to get out there and you want to experience all these different things. And you're just like, well, it's technically taboo to do X, Y, or Z, but I'm going to do it because I want to explore it. And even for the contrast, to understand, a little bit more about that. So let's unpack it, if you don't mind, Lucifer.
Yeah, pretty cool. Okay, like Lucifer is just a word. Like I remember when I was being initiated, there's something I did. Yeah, give me water. I don't know if I can say this, but it had to do with Lucifer. And then like, wait, am I doing something right? But I did it anyways, even though I was like, I scared that I'm bowing down to this light bearer, and I'm like, oh shit. And then what happened was I stopped going to the lodge. I didn't want anything part of it because it was like a part of me got scared and I just went the opposite way, and then not only until I started having my journey, I went back and like, okay, what is that? But Lucifer is Prometheus. Prometheus is the light bearer.
Yeah.
He brought light to man. It's the same thing, Prometheus. And the Anunnaki story.
Yeah.
With Enki, and what's the brother that helped the humans out? Is that Enki?
Enki and Enku, or it's one of the other two of them.
Enlil. So Enki is like Prometheus figure. He helped out the humans. I mean, it's just a story. So Set is who's Set? Set is the god of the underworld in ancient Egyptian tradition, which we know that all civilizations, language, everything came from ancient Egypt, and our understanding of spirituality came from Egypt also, ancient Egypt. Sorry, and so Set is the god of the underworld, and we are basically in a lower frequency. We are in the underworld. This is the underworld. We get burned by the sun, right? We need heat. Aren't we like reptilians? Doesn't our skin shed? Doesn't the cells regenerate within you? Like every 70 years you have a new liver. Every 7 years you have seven. That's another thing. Every 7 years you have new bone structure. And 7 is like what, Saturn? But it's like Saturn is the energy of structure. And Saturn was looked at as Satan. But it's just the understanding of like Set. We are in the realm of Set, separation. So if you are lost in that separation, then you are going to be one of the people in the underworld with all those kind of like turmoils happening, someone in hell, basically. It's like if the soul is basically in hell, in a state of separation, in duality, in Set, and it has to go back up. And the only way it can go back up is only if it invokes that light, the Christ consciousness within itself, to raise it up, And it's like we're bound to the flesh, It's like even in Islam, it's like, oh, you go to hell for 1 million years. Okay, then is year 1 million going to be the same density and punishment as like one more month of the sentence?
Mm-hmm.
Going to be the same painfulness? Obviously not, right? So it's like, yeah, we are in jail or in heaven, in hell, but it's a higher level of hell. And then after the body dies, then it's like, if you were mentally still in that hell, you're going to go back to hell, and it's going to rise up eventually. So like some people, they're not, the wheel of reincarnation, they're not going to come back, like the Tibetan wheel of life,
Mm-hmm.
It's like, they're not coming back. And it's like, it's a consciousness. And that's the whole thing about Satan, it's Set. It's the realm of Set. Didn't Satan, or didn't Iblis in Islam said, oh, let me, Allah, give me the power to, to live until the end of days, live until the end of time. And I'm gonna whisper to your people, and they're going to worship me, and they're not going to worship you. It's like, it's just a story, But it's like, that's how I look at Satan and all that kind of stuff. You know, it's like you are, you can be a child of God or you can be a child of Satan, you know?
It's very law of one-y, you know, in that regard as well. You know, like they do have they've got the wheel, right, of the wheel of reincarnation. But, you know, if you read like the raw material, you know, that book also channeled, right? Like that's what they're talking about, is they're talking about going one of two different paths. You know, you choose this polarity or that polarity, and then, you know, you kind of go through. So, you know, who knows how long that separation is if you choose that negative polarity. Whatever, you know, but, you know, it does all ultimately resolve, you know, at that point, right? Like as we go through these, what they call densities in that book. But it might be like you're saying, like that's the same as the layer of hell, or the layer, you know, going up, 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 up.
Yeah. And then like, I mean, thinking you know, it's all in the imagination too. You know, you have to, but the thing is, to even get to that level of imagination, you have to work at it, just like anything else. It's a very tough concept to, you know, intellectualize in the imagination, because, you know, abstract concepts are abstract to the logical mind, and then you have to make it into something you can understand, you know, like infinity, Allah, God, whatever you want to call it, is infinity, right?
Yeah.
That's very abstract. What is infinity? It's a very abstract concept. You know, they don't even know what electricity is.
Right.
You know, electricity is just like, what power is like? They don't know. I'm serious. It's like a mystery. It's a mystery.
It is a mystery. Absolutely. Yep.
And people are like, no, it's not. You know, they want people, like, I realize that people in my culture, in my Islamic tradition, they want to be verified. They want it to be validated by the authority figures, be it a university or some imam or some, you know, the masses. Basically, if the masses say it's okay, then it's okay, you know. But if it's like, but all these books like the raw material, you know, the book of Law of One, I mean, they're not channeled by some people in their basement. This is like Cornell University, you know. This is like Columbia University, PhD level stuff, you know. I mean, I'm not too far away from at work. I'm not too far away from Edwards Air Force Base, and it's like they channel, you know. Obviously, they channel all these, you know, governmental. They channel energy. They probably meditate in there, you know.
Yeah, there's remote viewers. I know personally a person who gets hired as a remote viewer for mostly businesses, you know, to like remote view for their businesses. But astrological people too, to your point about astrology, like there's a saying, millionaires don't believe in astrology, but billionaires do. You know? like that like people are into this stuff. And you know, I feel like that's why it's demonized in mass media, right? Like there's this stigma around the witch or the warlock or whatever, right? And there's something wrong with them, and it's always this negative spin on that. And I feel like there's a reason why. Like if it works, like you don't want it in everybody's hands, like you said. You know, if everybody's walking around magical powers, we'd be in a mess.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when you know, I always kind of like daydreamed about heaven and all that stuff. You know, even at like adolescent age, maybe when I was like 15, 16, I stopped, you know, but it's still a pretty late age to be daydreaming about how is heaven going to be, you know. It's kind of lame, you know. but it's like, you don't want it to be. If you're driving a Ferrari in heaven, you want some kind of excitement, you know. You want the risk of like getting a ticket. You want that risk. So it's like, how is that? And I thought everything was good, you know. It's like this is a layer. This is like a layer of heaven too. You know, this world is a layer of heaven. You know, I mean, I really understand. I really do believe, you know, it is like everything. It's all happening here, you know, and you can change your life. You can change the trajectory of your life by understanding these things, because you understand yourself. You understand how energy flows. You understand how, you know, what triggers you. You understand, you know, what holds you back and what part of you holds you back and what beliefs are limiting that you're holding on to, you know. And that's what that was my journey. It was like, okay, I know this stuff. Okay, I know all these things, and I could talk to other people, and it sounds cool, but it's like, how's it benefiting me? You know, in the past, I didn't know how to make it where, okay, it's benefiting me now. Like everything I have is from these kinds of, relationships I have with the divine, and these aspects, these Lucifer, all these aspects, they're aspects of the divine.
Mm-hmm.
Because everything one, right?
Everything has to resolve to one. Yeah. So these archetypes. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just like one of the myths that I've been reading about is Iron John. And what's funny about it is, I love Robert Anton Wilson so much. He's one of my biggest intellectual heroes, and he was really into Sufism and all kinds of other stuff.
Back in the 30s.
He was in the 70s when he wrote a book called Prometheus Rising. Actually, that was the one that did it for me. And
Robert Anton Wilson, I've heard of that name before. Has Brian Scott done any?
I don't know if I don't think Brian has. I've mentioned him a couple times in a couple of videos, but like as far as like my model of development really comes from Prometheus Rising, which is actually him taking Timothy Leary's discovery of the 8 circuits of consciousness is what he calls it. And they talk a lot about what the thinker thinks, the prover proves, right? That's the main premise of the book. What the thinker thinks, the prover proves. Talking about belief systems and how to change it in our imprints as we grow up, and how we're basically impacted in our subconscious beliefs. And that's a big part of it. But he got into, like, they have a sense of humor. I think that's why he, kind of was so interested in the Sufi tradition. They have a sense of humor. And then they talked a lot about, just, okay, now I'm losing it. But so Robert Anton Wilson, now I'm completely losing where I was going with that. But like the idea of, the Sufis and the sense of humor, he actually created it like a fake religion in the 70s called Discordianism. And that fairy tale myth that I've been listening to, Iron John, actually has an aspect in that story, in that myth, that they took to create Discordianism. Now, I didn't realize that Discordianism was based on an actual myth. I thought it was based on what they just made it up. They're like the goddess Eris. It was the goddess of chaos and destruction. What she does is she gives her, I think, brother, if I'm not mistaken, don't hold me to this, Paris, an apple, and says, give this to your favorite, goddess. It's like Athena, Aphrodite, and one other. And he has to choose between the 3. But he knows if he gives that apple to one of them, the other 2 are going to be really mad. So she's basically sowing discord. That's the myth. And that's where they created that whole religion off of, and talking about, just the chaos and worshiping that aspect, which, as we're talking about this, I realize too, it's like, it's not about worshiping, like you said earlier. It's not about worshiping anything, but accepting it for what it is, like that archetype, and being able to play with it, because that chaos, that destruction, that disorder, it's there, whether we like it or not. It's not all about that one thing, but it is one of those archetypes. It is one of those things that is part of the whole, which is resolving ultimately to one. But
it's like being a to me, I look at it as like being a vessel for that energy to be housed in. It's like a characteristic, it's like an archetype. If I become a vessel for that energy to want to be with me, then it's like it comes with it other things, like I don't know, like the dollars want you, dollars want you, like
right. I think, there's something really to that. It's like Kevin Hart, right? Like, he's a great comedian, but he's getting in this funny energy all the time. He's around his friends, they're, and they're in this spirit, of just, humor and laughter. And so it's real easy to go, hop into the next thing when you're already in that sort of, vortex, right? Like Abraham Hicks might call it, or,
Yeah.
you're in that vibe already. So you can just continue it, but it's about that archetype and understanding it. And so I would imagine, those 72, each and every one of them kind of have their own personality and their own place within the sort of order of things.
Yeah. And the more you personify them in a way your logical mind can like view them and see them and have a relationship with them, the more focus you're putting on this, like quantum physics, basically. Like the more focus and you put onto that, the more you're collapsing that dimension, which eventually is going to collapse into the third dimension, and because you're observing it,
Absolutely.
And you are the observer. I mean, it's like you can tie quantum physics and all the different, like I like tying everything together, with Buddhism and all that stuff, because it is all one. It's the same thing. It's just told in different cultural vernacular,
Absolutely. Yeah. We're just trying to surf the vernacular, that's
Yeah.
all about, right?
And me to tell somebody, no, you got to do it this way because this is wrong. It's like, that's not, I'm not about that. And somebody else, people tell me that what I'm doing is wrong. It's like, they don't know. I mean, I can't tell them my life story and show them this, and they still won't believe it. It's experiential. This life is about experience. Experience, knowledge is wisdom.
Absolutely. So, if somebody wants to like work with you, let's say, they've been a part of this tradition, they want to maybe, take the next step into spirituality or understand some deeper concepts. How would they what's the best way for them to find you and get in touch?
Well, I do have the Muslim Mystic handle for all my social media, basically, except Facebook. So Instagram, TikTok, Muslim Mystic. And also I have a website, muslimmystic.com, but it's still in the framework section. So it's not done yet, but I mean, it's still there with some words on it. So you can go to that webpage, and maybe me telling you this and telling everyone this whip my ass into actually getting it done. That's so, and for me to like, gosh, it's like, it's like I have to conjure up like energy, it's just so, it's such a big step for me, I mean, the website is there now, and that took a long time, but it's like slowly I'm moving to that right direction. And everybody has, issues. I'm not perfect. I have a lot of vices, I'm not going to talk about them, but I think we make like people that are into spirituality, we make them like accountable for higher things than ourselves, and that's kind of like not true. I mean, I met people that, if you meet your role model, then they'll destroy what you thought of them,
It's so true. God, it's so true, man. I can't tell you how many times I've experienced it. Yeah.
If you ever see me in like the normal sense, not on TikTok or YouTube, then it's like, oh, this guy's like, I thought he was spiritual. Why is he doing that? Why is he doing this? Or, I don't like make fun of people or anything like that. That's stuff I don't do, because I know it's me, I'm making fun of. And it's like, I don't do that stuff. But in terms of like, some vices I have, cannabis, maybe some people that's a vice, tobacco, whatever. It's like, that I look at it as feeding my demons, because what likes cigarettes? What likes the physical food and all this kind of stuff? It's the physical part of you, which is the demons, the lower terrestrial entities. I keep them happy by doing that, but I control it. It's like, hey, you want to eat this burger? Once a month I have a burger, and then, but it's like, it doesn't, it's like we have a relationship, it's like I help it, it helps me kind of thing in my mind. I don't look at it as two different things separate. It's me. It's just different aspects, which I give things to,
Sure.
I want,
Sure.
And it's almost a byproduct. It's like you let go and let God. And it's like the byproduct of you letting go is what the ego feels. And it's something that if it tried to get that thing by itself, maybe there's 5 ways to get it through the ego, but through the divine, it's like infinity. You know, you don't know how. Just let go, let it happen, and the byproduct is going to be like awesome. It's like, wow, this happened. I cannot plan this. You know.
That's great. Yeah, I love it, man. I'm really glad we connected. I've been enjoying your work, like for a while. So I'm gonna continue to stay in touch, and with your website and stuff too. Maybe that's something I can help with. I might ask you some questions about how you're doing all that. I didn't have a website until this past year myself. Like I kept meaning to do it, but finally got around to it. But yeah, we could talk about some stuff like that. I'll definitely continue to stay in touch. I'll put links in the description as well of this video, so everybody can go and check out Ahrar's work. And yeah, TikTok, Instagram, and MuslimMystic.com. I'll put all those links in the show notes for everybody so they can go and check out your work. Anything else you want to share before we hop off here?
No, just thank you for having me. Thank you for reaching out, and this is really cool. It's really,
it is really cool. Let's do it again sometime. I've really
sure.
Awesome.
And I think definitely like with your perspective and my perspective, and we can be like a link to a lot of people and trying to, there's a lot of people that are really on the fence, like a lot of people, when they leave their spiritual tradition, they hate it. It's like they throw the baby with the bathwater.
Yes.
Whatever your tradition you're in, that was created for you to rise up.
I just love that.
So it's not, no one's wrong. They're all right. It's just, you have to utilize it as a stepping stone. It's like a Jacob's ladder. Your vertebrae is like Jacob's ladder.
Right, the 33. Yeah.
33. Yeah. So it's like you go up. Don't get stuck in the lower dimensions. The heart is the middle point for the lower and the upper. The vagus nerve.
The vagus nerve. Yes. The
vagus nerves or Vargas?
I think it's Vegas. VAGUS, if I'm not mistaken.
It goes from your brain to like freaking your gut. Passes through. That's a connection. It's like it's really crazy.
No, it is crazy. Like all this stuff is so correspondent. That's what I'm saying with the astrology stuff and the myth stuff. It's like, oh, of course, that archetype is a planet is the same. And so like understanding like how this stuff is starting to come together, it's really interesting too. I'm about to turn 39, which means I'll soon be 40. So maybe when I turn 40, like some of this stuff will, illuminate for me as well, and it starts to make sense too, because I had always read a little bit about like saying, oh, don't study the Kabbalah until later in life. You won't understand it, that kind of thing.
See, the thing is like, okay, it's weird because you've heard it all your life. So that has become what the ego has kind of understood. And then when you turn 40, you're like, whoa, okay, I'm free from that. Not knowing because I'm not 40. It's like, it's really mind boggling. It's like, cause I heard it all my life too. Oh, 40. But then when I turned 40, then that's when I'm like, wow, I really get it, because that was part of your internal beliefs for so long, that you can't undo it, Yeah. But
amazing.
Yeah.
Really, really cool. No, I'm sorry.
We could talk forever about this stuff.
I know we could. We'll definitely do another one. And like I said, I'll definitely be in touch. Thank you so much for your time. And yeah, we'll say goodbye to everybody out there. Thanks everybody in the chat. We appreciate you popping in, saying hello. God bless you. We'll talk to you soon.